topic, and people said, well, hey, should my stylists that are on the floor answer the phones? This is it's a tough question because it's a different answer depending on where you're at in the world of salons. And what I mean by that is, if you're an independent stylist or there's just you in the salon or maybe two people, you probably are answering the phones and doing a lot of different things because the two of you had to figure this out. And as an owner, your mindset is typically like, hey, if it's just me, I have to do everything. It'd be the same if there was two of you in the salon, you're like, well, who's going to scrub the toilets, Kayla, you or me? Like, well, one of us has to do it. Maybe we should rotate. Like, you probably figure out a way to make it work. If, like, you and I wanted to start a salon, we're going to say we're going to scrub toilets. But then we bring in Molly, who, by the way, is monitoring with us today. Say hi, Molly. She's probably a minute behind us.
Say hi.
She's like, what? She's behind the screen. Anyway, she's over there. She's monitoring. She's making sure she can hear us. And then she's going to hear it in like 5 minutes and wave her hand. But what I lost my train of thought. So on this thought of
when
like,
Molly
if it
comes
was,
in, has to
yeah,
do
okay. So Molly comes in, and then it's like, cool. Well, hey, by the way, we all scrub toilets around here, so congratulations, you're scrubbing toilets. And I'm just saying, because I've run a small company with 2 people, and like that's how you figure it out. And you either hire a cleaning company, or like we can't afford to hire a cleaning company. So what starts to happen in a really small salon is everybody does everything, and like we all pitch in. Now, if you are in a big salon, let's say we have 20 stylists, there's probably a cleaning service that comes in and scrubs the toilets. Like in our office, we have somebody who comes in and cleans the whole office once a week, right? That's not part of your job. But if I was like, Kayla, and I'm saying scrubbing toilets, I know scrubbing toilets and answering the phone are not the same thing, but I want to be clear because it's a similar idea.
Yeah.
Okay? So if I'm like, Kayla, welcome to your new job. You come to work for us. And by the way, we all take a rotation around here. And on Tuesday, you get toilet scrubbing duty. You might be like, wow, I was hired on to do social media, and like I didn't realize scrubbing toilets is part of my job. You might go, I don't think this is a good job for me. Like that's just not my jam.
Not my jam.
That's okay, and I don't want to scrub toilets either. That's why I hire somebody to do it. But there's kind of a point when you get to a level that you can hire those people to do it. So I answered this question, and this is what I see in the group a lot, and I hope that you guys hear me on this, is when you just ask a generic question inside of our group, the problem is you don't know who's going to answer it. Mm-hmm. Is that person a small salon of 2 people answering you, or is it somebody who has 25 people answering you, or somebody who has 100 people? Because the comments look like people are crazy, and they're all over the board. Like, this gal says you can't have the receptionist. This one says you should just hire somebody. This one says... And they're all basing their question on where they are, not on where you are asking the question.
Oh, that's a good distinction.
So when we work with people as coaches... Our job is to answer their question based on where they are. There's not like a right or wrong answer to any salon has to do it this way. It's like, well, it depends. Can you afford to have a receptionist, or do you need to have an agreement with your stylist? And I think this rewinds all the way back to a very simple thing called expectations. When you brought them on, did you just say you were going to be a stylist, or did you bring them on and say, hey, we're a really small salon, there's lots of stuff for us to do around here, we all contribute and pitch in? Because again, if I would have hired you and said that, and you would have agreed to it, then that would be fine. But if I now am like, hey, I've tried to hire a receptionist, I can't get anybody to do the job, nobody wants to work, so guess what, that's your job now. That's no bueno. No. Because now you're giving somebody a job that they didn't agree to, that wasn't part of their reality. Maybe they worked at a bigger salon that they never had to do something like answer the phones, and they might see it as beneath them. But this is another example too, is like as a stylist, you're making $40 and $60 an hour or better in some cases, and you can hire a receptionist for $20 an hour, or $17 or $15 or $12 in some cities, right? Yeah. You can hire people at very different rates. And so when you say, can you answer the phones, it's no big deal, just answer it when you can. They're like, look, what they're doing is they're saying, I'm teaching you, the business owner, that it's okay to not hire somebody to do that job by doing the job.
Ooh, that's good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong. I mean, you know how it works around here, Kayla. Like, even for us, there's plenty of things that you might go like, hey, events isn't necessarily part of my job, but we do it because it's a different part of it, right? But like, we want to be careful. Or like, hey, I need to move that table. You're not going to be like, sorry, Jason, I can't move that table. It's not in my job description. Right. I would agree. I would say, Kayla, what the F? If you were like, Jason, moving that table is not in my job description, I would be like, Kayla, that's probably not the best fit around here because we all pitch in. Yeah. But if I'm like, no, every day I want you to trim the hedges outside of the building, yikes, you'd be like, that's not in my job description. Like, can we hire a landscaper? I feel like it's the same thing with the receptionist. The staff shouldn't have to answer the phones. Part of, if you truly run a commissioned salon, part of what you're providing them with is a receptionist, in my opinion. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like, they should be providing that reception. Now, if you're like, I really can't find somebody, allow me to give another recommendation, is that if you say, hey, I'd like you to answer phones, I would actually recommend that you pay them an additional fee for jumping into that spot. So here's what I mean. Like if I said to you, hey, Kayla, and this is a silly thing to say, but let's go back to the hedge analogy.
All right.
If I'm like, Kayla, I know that you'd love to make a little bit more money. I need to get the hedges trimmed. I was going to hire somebody to come and do those, and I was going to pay them $100 a week to trim the hedges. That's a lot. I don't know. But let's just say $100 a week. And you're like, hey, Jason, I'd love to have that extra $100.
Yeah.
I'm happy to trim those down, even though that's not really my jam. I used to do landscaping in my old apartment, whatever. I'm cool to trim the hedges.
Yeah.
You at least have an option to do the hedges because I offer you that $100.
And then I'm in for it.
And then you're in, and we've created a new agreement.
Yes.
So this idea around, should you just say, hey, if you're not busy, just grab the phone, it gets a little dicey. But if I say, listen, I'm working on hiring a receptionist, I have additional money to pay for a receptionist, and what I'd like to do is if one of you is happy to answer the phones during your day, I will offer you, not a bonus in your commission, because that's what people do. Don't do that crap. Don't say, I'll give you an extra 5% commission.
Ooh.
You say, I will give you an extra $100 a week if you're willing to answer the phones when they ring throughout the day. And somebody goes, oh, I'm cool with that. Somebody else isn't cool with that. Great. Now you have the problem handled.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a better way to do it. Or even if it's a day, like, hey, if you're having to be responsible for the day, there's an extra $25 up for grabs if you're willing to grab a few phone calls.
Yep.
Totally fine. There's another thing, too, if you don't know about them. I know I'm taking a long time to answer this question, but hopefully you're getting value. If you are, somebody comment value or Jason, I hate your face. Either of those two things would be helpful. Sorry, I hope nobody did. But the other thing is there's other companies out there that are phone answering systems that you can hire on that charge minimal amounts of money, less than the cost of a receptionist typically. That like if the salon phone rings twice, it'll roll over to another call center. And they have people who are standing by who can answer the phones and book appointments for you. They're called call centers. You can Google just call centers. There's an old one I used to use. I don't know if they're still around. It's called Apple Tree Answers. Hopefully you don't get a ton of business out of this. But Apple Tree Answers, not an endorsement. But you set up a call system with them, and then for like $500 a month, they become your receptionist. And they answer the phone after hours.
Wow.
During the day, if it rings a certain number of times, you can have the phone system roll over to go straight to them, and it's a great way to do it.
Resources.
Or you can pay your staff to do it. Just commit to it. So anyway, should your team answer the phones? It depends. And like I said, depending on what size salon you are and what's going on, now you know my whole thoughts, my 9 minutes and 55 seconds of thoughts on that.
But I feel like, if you had the conversation when you hired them, like, this is something I'm going to need you to do. We don't have a receptionist yet.
Totally.
And that would be a completely different story than if you just all of a sudden are going up to them and be like, hey, I need you to answer the phone.
Yeah, and that's I was going to check for comments while we're hanging out here. I'm pulling up my phone too, so we're doing it. But yeah, I want you guys to catch that. And what was your most valuable thing you learned from that? Like, because I'm hoping you guys caught a lot of different value in how that's set up in this regard to like, it's just about the agreement that you have set up.
Yeah.
There's not a black and white. And I think sometimes people ask in the group, and I'll just tell you right now, like, please don't ask the black and white question that just says, should you pay a receptionist or not? Because the answer is it depends. But if we're asking more questions in regards to like, here's my situation, in this situation, does it make sense? That's a much better way that I can answer that question. Is like, hey, I have 3 stylists. This is our problem. Here's what we're doing. Now I can answer the question better. Because otherwise I have to answer this size, and this size, and this size, and this size. Anyway, does that help?
And if anybody has a specific way, like a specific situation that you want to bring that we could answer, leave it in the comments, and we can answer your situation specifically.
Yes. Donna said value, by the way. So Donna got value, and Sylvia, I wanted to give a shout out to you. You said value also. So thank you guys for commenting. I can see you guys.
And nobody hates your face?
Not well. I mean,
yet.
Let's be honest. I'm sure somebody does.
Yeah,
There's billions of people on the planet. I'm sure plenty of people hate me, but
I doubt they're watching.
But in here, we're doing okay.
Here we're doing okay. That's what matters right now.
All right. What else
question
we got,
number
Kayla?
2.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, and if you're live, comment live, and if you're catching the replay, comment replay, because I love to see who catches this after. Not everybody can join live.
Yeah, that's all good.
Okay, Steven asks, let's talk about new locations.
What up, Steven?
Can you give your top tips as to what to consider when deciding if it is the right time to open another location?
Yeah, this has been a hot topic, not only in the Profitable Salon Owner group, which we're in live right now, but in our main High Performance Salon Academy. Yeah. A lot of our Academy members who are in our our paid programs are having so much growth that they're looking for second and third locations, and I love that. So if you're in that same spot right now and you're looking for multiple locations, like, good on you, because there are plenty of people who are still struggling, and so congratulations for being in the minority that are doing extremely well. And I want to continue to leave you in that minority. Sorry, another gallon of water drink. So, Steven, I I don't know enough about your salon, so if you can comment later, I'll give you more. But you tell me like a little bit more about. I don't even know where you are. I just need to know how many staff you have, how many chairs you have, and why you're considering a new location. That'll kind of help me. But I'll answer as generically as I can. So there's two general guidelines that are very helpful about when it's time to open another location that are kind of like a general rule. Mm-hmm. Now, in the academy, we teach off what are called generalized principles instead of off of like absolutes. Okay. And I don't know if do you know the difference between generalized principle and absolute?
I actually don't.
Okay,
no.
I didn't know if we'd ever talked about it. So a generalized principle is something that's like true in all cases if the situation is right, versus a rule is like, it's like 1 + 1 is 2, versus saying like, how much food makes you full? Because like if I said how much food makes you full and I said 5 pounds of food, you're like, well wait that 5 pounds for you versus 5 pounds for me or 5 pounds for everybody else. So like a rule would be like 5 pounds of food will always make you full. That's a lot of food, but I'm just saying like in general, if I tried to answer that for you versus me versus anybody else, that's not really a good answer, because what's good for you is not good for me. So a better way to look at it is like, well, what's a rule? Well, this % of your body weight or this % of whatever is more of a generalized principle that you can apply to each of your settings. So when we go to answer these questions, and I don't know if I'm getting too complicated. If this is more complicated than you guys want to know, let me know. But when I give answers for salons, same thing applies. Is what's the general principle that can be applied, not like, well, when you get 10 staff members, it's time for you to go to another location, because that doesn't work depending on how many chairs you have. So let me give you the principle. The general principle is when you get at what's called 80% of your what's called capacity utilization. It's a term that means how much of your space are you using, okay? So let's say you've got a salon and you have 10 chairs inside your salon, okay? And those 10 chairs, you have 8 staff members that work there. So that means 8 of the chairs are occupied, 2 are free. Okay. That would be considered, if you do easy math, that's 80% of your chair capacity, okay? Is that you have 8 stylists, 10 chairs, you're at 80%, okay? That's called your stylist capacity. Now, it gets one more step complicated on this because I need to talk about it. There's another thing inside salons. It's called split shifting. Most of you guys know what split shifting is. Yes. But split shifting is where you run double shifts. You run a morning shift and an afternoon shift on all those chairs. So are you truly at 80% capacity if you have 10 chairs and 8 staff?
Interesting.
You're not, right? Because you're not really at 80% because you can split shift those stations. Oh. So now, all of a sudden, you need to have not just 8 stylists, but you need to have 16 stylists. So if you had 16 stylists with 10 chairs, you're now at 80% of your possible capacity of your salon. Okay. And this obviously factors into like days of the week that you're open and all these other things. But it hopefully gives you a general idea. If you're following me so far on this math, say following me in the comments, okay? So that's kind of what I'm saying is you can have 16 stylists in a 10-chair salon and you'd be at 80%.
Interesting.
Where does this 80% come from? A lot of people are like, oh, that's the 80-20 rule, Jason. Sort of, okay? The 80% rule in this situation was actually based off megachurches. When megachurches did a lot of studies, they found that when people would come to church, once 80% of the seats were full, and it looked very busy there, that people would come to church and feel like there's nowhere for me to go.
Interesting.
And they would actually turn around and leave or not come back because they felt like it was too full for them to find a seat. Oh, wow. Okay? And so what they did is they said, okay, well, once we get to 80%, it's time for us to add chairs or add seats or make that happen. So they're constantly at this 80%. I mean, in almost every place you go, there's always open seats. Concerts, festivals, whatever, there's open seats places. And usually concerts and festivals fill up to about 80%, and then people go, ooh, it's really busy here. So the same concept applies inside the salon, is that if you're at 80% capacity, again, 10 chairs, 16 stylists, or 8, depending on what hours you're open, things like that.